The party's over. That's the focus of tonight's angle. They kind of do deserve the name Democrats after they just lost the presidential election in both houses of Congress, in part because of Biden and Harris's open borders plot to change America. Prominent Democrats, what do? They decide that it's smart politics not to just keep supporting sanctuary policies in sanctuary cities, but also to oppose the deportation of violent illegal alien felons, including rapists, kidnappers, child abusers, gang members. And they were all here, and they were all roaming free.
What's your issue with the U.S. using any tool at its disposal to remove undocumented violent people from this country?
We already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. Giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong.
Wow. What a legal mind. First, Biden didn't remove the 261 illegal aliens who were deported to El Salvador over the weekend. Second, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is one of the tools in the president's toolbox, and he's using it. 137 illegals under that law. Third, of course, 101 of the Venezuelans removed were done via this usual Title VIII, which is the regular immigration proceedings. 21 were MS-13 gang leaders. 2 were special cases for El Salvador, really bad. So you have to ask yourself, what crimes did this fun bunch commit? Yeah, kidnapping, sexual abuse of a child, aggravated assault, robbery, aggravated assault of a police officer, to name a few.
The president, through proclamation, took his authority under Alien Enemies Act and imposed it, which he has a right to do. TDA has been designated terrorist organizations. TDA is an enemy of this country. We know TDA, based on a lot of evidence, are part of the Maduro regime through the military and law enforcement. They've infiltrated them. The president did the right thing. I stand by him.
By abandoning Trump's successful first-term border policies, Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, and Kamala Harris did incalculable damage to our country. I think it was treasonous. I said so, whatever, it was 4 years ago now. And it was damage we may never fully recover from. 12 million illegals, at least, probably more. And that's just in 4 years, plus hundreds of thousands who were just gotaways, hundreds on the terror watch list. And why? Why was that done? Because the fanatics running his auto pen fundamentally hate America. So they were doing everything in their power to change the United States, culturally, demographically, yeah, and of course, electorally. And as for the collateral damage that went along with that, they didn't care.
The Gateway Hotel forced to shut down. Luis Garciela says the crime there is far worse than anyone can imagine.
I got my door kicked in and got robbed a couple times. Well, they said call the police, but, pretty much they're not going to do anything.
Police blame the spike in crime on Tren de Aragua gang members living at the hotel.
This nightclub only sets up on certain weekends, and it's invitation only to members of TDA and their associates.
The DEA says about 50 people who were in the country illegally were taken into custody, many connected to TDA.
How dare Donald Trump and his DHS act to rid America of these people? Violent criminals, violent gang members, despicable individuals who came here for one reason: to terrorize Americans, steal, rape, rob, and kill. And by the way, they didn't do that just to Americans, also to legal immigrants.
There's been some criticism that the Alien Enemies Act has only been invoked 3 other times. They were all during times of war. Do you feel that you're using it appropriately right now?
Well, this is a time of war because Biden allowed millions of people, many of them criminals, many of them at the highest level. It's an invasion. And these are criminals, many, many criminals, murderers, drug dealers at the highest level, drug lords, people from mental institutions. That's an invasion. They invaded our country.
Totally agree. Now, think about what a scandal this is. To have a government that actually stands up for us, for our safety, for our security, and one that actually defends our sovereignty. During the dark years of the Biden regime, America gave these deranged thugs more, not fewer, rights than they were entitled to. But now, the Trump team has a message to all those here who should not be. You better self-deport now and not return, or you could be on the next flight to El Salvador.
Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I know who I want to take me home.
Yeah, leave. But liberals are so desperate to keep these criminals here that they try to argue that federal law has an expiration date.
This is over 200 years old. It has been rarely invoked. There are all sorts of problems with invoking the statute. We're not at war with Venezuela. We're not at war with the gang that is the subject of the executive order. There is no invasion that is going on. This statute may, in fact, be very unconstitutional because it doesn't give due process to those people.
More due process for violent, illegal felons. That's got to be a bumper sticker. Now, of course, Weissman's the same guy who pushed the Russian collusion hoax for years.
What do you say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
Mic drop moment. Have Democrats made a pact amongst themselves? I'm beginning to think they have. A pact that we don't know about? Maybe it's a secret agreement amongst themselves to lose elections for the foreseeable future. And has the regime media, have they decided to help them lose as well? And that brings us to tonight's immigration sob story.
Those planes landed and they got off and they were handed over to the El Salvadorian government, something the president of El Salvador has tweeted about and said, oopsies, too late. This is a real mocking of this order that can't be undone. They have multiple men sleeping on concrete slabs without so much as a mattress or a sheet.
Wonder what their victims are doing tonight. You ever think about them? Again, the Republican campaign commercials, at this point, they're just writing themselves. Democrats for migrant felons, Republicans for American safety. I'll take that. And that's the angle.
We begin tonight in the swamp in D.C., where the White House is buzzing with activity. Look at this past 72 hours. President Trump announcing a successful strike against the leader of ISIS in Iraq. He then ordered multiple large-scale strikes, as I just mentioned, against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen, delivering a major blow to the Houthis, reportedly taking out top leadership there, while sending a very clear, unambiguous message to their benefactors in Iran. Are now coming to an end. At the very same time, Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act to quickly deport dozens of violent criminal illegals in our country with deep ties to dangerous gangs like Tren de Aragua. As per usual, a far-left judge tried to intervene, but it was too little, too late. The illegals were already out of the country on flights to El Salvador, where they will be locked up in the country's massive prison system for what would be a fraction of the cost compared to a U.S. prison. And on social media, the White House commemorated the moment with the song Closing Time.
Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I know who I want to take me home.
Apparently, the band did not endorse the use of their song, and needless to say, Democrats, the media mob, they're not happy about any of it. They are now so deeply concerned with the violent Latin American gang members that Biden and Harris allowed into the country. Can't make it up, but take a look.
When you heard the president and his top aides talking about mass deportations, they over and over said, we're going to start with the most criminal among us, but we don't have any evidence of who the people really are and what their backgrounds truly are.
We can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things. And so giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong.
And to think that people are now being sent there without due process, Anna, that part is definitely unprecedented.
You just got to keep your eyes open, y'all. Because if they can just come up and take somebody because they've made a decision that you're supposed to be that person, any one of us could find ourselves being deported to some country.
Don't give them any ideas, girl.
Actually, the commander-in-chief does have the right to deport them. That would be part of his job. And also, what about the safety of your family and loved ones over the non-existent rights of people that didn't respect our laws, border sovereignty, illegal immigrants? This brings us now to another hot mic drop moment from border czar Tom Homan, who had a simple but effective response to reporters obsessed with the 18th century Alien Enemies Act. Take a look.
What do you say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
Checkmate, Tom Homan. Make no mistake, President Trump is going to use every law in the book to protect you, the American people, expel criminal illegal aliens from our country. And by the way, that is exactly what the American people voted for. Donald Trump's approval numbers at an all-time high, even in the latest fake NBC News poll. The same poll showing the Democrats with an all-time low approval. Look at this. Just 27% of Americans have a positive or even somewhat positive view of the Democratic Party. And forget it, when it comes to members of Congress, they're in the low 20s. We see similar numbers from fake news CNN. Democratic Party's favorability is at 29%. That is 3 consecutive polls in the 20s. That is the lowest number since 1990. It is so bad that journalists over at fake news CNN, even they are having a difficult time containing their shock and their horror. They're very upset. Take a look.
Democrats full of despair. All I have to say, Democrats, call your office. You know, we're March Madness times. Terrible, terrible, terrible. To quote the great Charles Barkley, view Democratic Party favorably. CNN SRS, look at this, 29%. NBC News, you want to go lower than that? How about 27%? Both are record lows, the lowest going back to 1992 in CNN polling, the lowest going back on record to 1990 in NBC News polling. The majority of Americans hold an unfavorable or negative view of the Democratic Party at this point. All I can say is I'm a big fan of the oldies, so I'm going to quote Chubby Checker, how low can you go?
How low can you go? Now, call it the Trump effect if you prefer, but the Democratic Party is officially a dumpster fire, and no one on the left can keep up with the speed of Donald Trump. Their heads are clearly spinning, and they are now turning on each other. And by the way, Chuck Schumer's days are officially, they may be numbered. We're going to have a lot more on that coming up. But first, back to the speed of Trump. Just this week, the 2 American astronauts, once trapped in space, they are now scheduled to return to Earth over the weekend. Elon Musk and his rocket successfully docking with the International Space Station, where the new astronauts met the stranded astronauts, and hopefully they will be home as soon as early tomorrow. Also tomorrow, Donald Trump is scheduled to speak with Vladimir Putin as the president now continues to negotiate peace. President Trump is also set to release the government's secret files on the assassination of JFK. We look forward to a deep dive into that. And border wall construction, we can report tonight, is also resuming after Donald Trump has now signed off on the first construction contract of this term. There will also be a major discussion at the White House on trade, taxes, manufacturing, and of course, DOGE is continuing their important work, now well over $100 billion in savings for you, the American taxpayer. And that is nowhere near a comprehensive list of what Donald Trump even has on his plate this week alone. But I am sure Democrats will keep themselves busy with a few lame protests, angry press conferences, bingo cards. There's no telling. Take a look.
There is now a member of the European Parliament from France who does not think the U.S. represents the values of the Statue of Liberty anymore. They want the Statue of Liberty back. So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not.
And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country.
Hold your applause. Just send photos. Happy St. Patrick's Day. What a spectacle, huh? In Times Square, crews spent the afternoon dyeing all the urine green. To celebrate, Jesse Waters is wearing his 4-leaf hairpiece.
Oh my God.
Luckily, I was able to park my car in a no vomiting zone. And Bill Clinton was at the parade. He wore a Kiss Me, I'm Irish button on his fly.
Worked before.
I'm like that. On Saturday, Donald Trump was hit in the face by a reporter's microphone while speaking. Now he knows how Stormy Daniels felt.
You know, the sound guy. The sound
Yes!
guy. The
That's a
mic on the
great
sound
joke. A fisherman from Peru survived being stranded in the ocean for 95 days by eating insects, birds, and sea turtles, which proves one thing: he's a horrible fisherman. What's your problem, dude? A professor is suing his school for losing a 380 million-year-old fossil that ended up in the garbage. Yeah, I was wondering where Geraldo went.
You punk, Greg, you young punk.
You're just a punk.
You're just a punk.
A man that Washington Governor Jay Inslee gave clemency to was caught with enough fentanyl to kill nearly 300,000 people. Joe Biden wasn't impressed, saying, "Hey, I pardoned a guy who killed 10 times that." Snow White premiered in Los Angeles on Saturday. It's the worst thing to happen to this city all year, said firefighters. Over the weekend, Bill Belichick and his 23-year-old girlfriend went to Florida to celebrate spring break. She won a wet t-shirt contest, and he won a wet diaper contest. Finally, an LA man whose lap was scalded by tea at Starbucks was awarded $50 million. When asked how much pain he was in, he replied, "A latte." I feel dirty. Hey, it's free. Oh, that joke wasn't that good. Okay, you write one. So once again, that evil Bond villain Elon Musk scores yet another victory, and this time it wasn't something mundane like helping the paralyzed walk or finding billions of wasted taxpayer dollars or impregnating anyone who test drives a Tesla. No, this time all he did was send his spaceship to rescue 2 American astronauts who've been stranded on the International Space Station for 9 months. Yeah, 9 months. Thank you. Thanks. I mean, 9 months, even for me, that's a long time to be pooping in vacuums. Here's Musk's SpaceX Starship docking in orbit with the International Space Station. Isn't that something? That might be the most amazing footage since I saw Jesse Waters actually holding the door for a pregnant lady on crutches. But is there anyone else on Earth who could even attempt something like this? The guy just sent into orbit a tin can about half the length of a football field to merge with an even bigger tin can, all going 1,700 miles an hour. Now, it's true that Musk has had a lot of practice at this sort of thing. After all, he's got 14 kids. Even so, he was willing to risk his space company's reputation in order to get these Yanks back home. And while they're not back yet, they are literally halfway home. But it's like I said after I got that Korean houseboy through customs. The hard part is over. And it sure beats waiting for the corpse to show up, because he never did. It was Joe Biden, says Musk, who apparently turned down Elon's offer to rescue our astronauts. I wonder if it had anything to do with the offer coming before November 5th. So Biden was willing to leave our people in space as if they were billions in military gear in Afghanistan. Here's one of the astronauts thanking Musk and Trump ahead of the mission.
All of us have the utmost respect for Mr. Musk and obviously respect and admiration for our President of the United States, Donald Trump. We appreciate them. We appreciate all that they do for us, for human spaceflight, for our nation. And we're thankful that they are in the positions they're in.
I wonder if her hair gets in that guy's tang. Just wear a hat. So while Team Trump's superhero was saving astronauts, what were the Dems up to? More specifically, what's a current actual astronaut on Earth doing? Well, he's not helping the stranded, that's for sure. No, instead, Democrat Senator Mark Kelly is melting down on social media, selling his Tesla and buying a Chevy Tahoe. Tahoe?
Here in Washington, driving to work for the last time in my Tesla. When I bought this thing, I didn't think it was going to become a political issue. Every time I get in this car in the last 60 days or so, it reminds me of just how much damage Elon Musk and Donald Trump is doing to our country. Elon Musk kind of turned out to be an asshole, and I don't want to be driving a car built and designed by an asshole. Here I am with my new ride, Chevy, good old Chevy Tahoe.
All right, jackass. So here's a guy who once, all right, I'll take it. It's cheap, but I'll take it. Why not? Clap away. But here's a guy who once pretended to care about the environment, saying that climate change was an existential threat. And now, for some cheap political attention, he's burning bridges and fossil fuels. Could there be a clearer contrast between a team that gets things done and a team that is all narrative and posing? It's insane. Mark Kelly may be one of the few people who could appreciate what it's like to be stranded. He's a freaking astronaut and a military vet. It's kind of telling that Kelly had to be a quality person at some point, and now he's leading the mob against Musk. A mob that vandalizes Teslas, spray paints swastikas and the word Nazi on dealerships. So maybe it isn't really about Kelly, it's about what the current Democrat mindset does to people, even seemingly decent people. I mean, Senator Kelly, the guy you're vilifying, is rescuing astronauts who are your people, and you've resorted to a theater kid tantrum that elevates the worst rather than hope for the best. It's funny, 10 years ago, this rescue mission would be wall-to-wall coverage. It would be a national shared event like the moon landing, except this one would be real. I know. Now, it's not even worth a mention on legacy media. Of course, if the astronauts don't make it back, then it'll be all over the news, because in their minds, bad news under Republicans makes great news for them. So you got to ask, what sort of phenomenon roots against American heroism to a point where it makes an astronaut dump on a guy who's rescuing other astronauts? The answer is a party whose ideology roots against shared risk, bold moves, and national aspirations. It rails against actual action in favor of choreographed, phony outrage. It's a party that managed to turn Mark Kelly into whatever that is. Mark Kelly isn't Mark Kelly anymore. I guess the left can say they at least accomplished that. They turned an astronaut into just another ass.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.